It's been rather encouraging to hear stories over the past few weeks of communities coming together and helping each other after Hurricane Harvey, despite their political and social divisions. Southeast Texas, where we just visited friends and family after General Assembly, has literally been swimming to the other side together. And with the events just before in Charlottesville, our country seemed to be at a new low, with painful divisions and growing hatred and cruelty. And then Hurricane Harvey brought black and white, immigrant and citizens, right and left, together to help each other survive unimaginable devastation. There was no talk suggesting anyone ignore rescuing the undocumented or people of color. They were all just people. People needing emergency help and assistance. Divisions melted away for a few days as an urgent sense of community and caring became apparent. We can only hope that the same will happen in the aftermath of Hurricane Irma, which is wreaking havoc in Florida right now as we sit here. And meanwhile, tomorrow we honor the anniversary of 9/11. Do you remember how New Yorkers came together after that? People humbled by the devastation worked for one another's good. New Yorkers shared stories that the city became friendlier than ever before. It's at times like these, my friends, times when life seems chaotic and uncertain, times with natural and man-made disasters abounding, that we are so blessed to be able to gather in this loving community. To gather in this community to sing, to comfort and care for one another. To gather in community to offer each other hope and companionship while we galvanize our energies to feel stronger together than we do alone. To gather in raising our voices in resistance to policies and forces that demean and oppress the most vulnerable. To gather to ask questions. To honor that which is sacred to us. And decipher together how to move forward. To gather to nourish each other with our gifts of time, treasure, and talent. And remind one another that we are all interconnected. We can do so much more in community than we could ever do alone. We really have something pretty special here, don't you think? So I ask myself, why don't people flock through our doors to become part of this beautiful collective? Why do some say, oh, I'm not a joiner, or I'm more of a loner? Why do so many stay in their isolated lives where they may literally starve from lack of social and spiritual nourishment? Now, aside from cultural introversion, perhaps exacerbated by the semblance of community online, my guess is that the challenges of being in community are more than some think that they can handle. A British woman who became a Buddhist nun wrote about her 12 years living 13,000 feet up in a cave in the Himalayas. A cave in the snow, no less, and there were at least 3 times she had to dig tunnels out of the snow to even be able to get out of the cave. And when people say to her that it must have been so hard, she says that living in the cave for 12 years alone was the easy part. The harder practice was when she came out, living with other people in accordance with her vows of compassion and loving kindness. Interacting with others can be challenging, especially if we wish to be compassionate and kind and hold ourselves to those values. It takes work to remain connected when we have different opinions, different backgrounds and priorities. It takes effort to heal, to deal with difficult conversations, with difficult personalities and situations that can arise in community. In fact, there are likely 200 different ways people like to do things here at CVUUF, and 200 different expressions of values and expectations. And that can be a little challenging, frankly. We may trigger one another or misunderstand each other. We may fail to listen well or hurt each other's feelings. We may be perplexed at how very different we all are in our ways of approaching generosity or justice, friendships or meaning. Some of you have shared with me how hard it is when people in our community don't have the same commitments and priorities that you do. And yet these difficulties, these many conflicting ways, can also be our precious gifts for transformation. If we have the courage to stay the course, to state our truth with vulnerability and kindness, I believe these challenges can help us learn to be more compassionate, more forgiving, more loving and connected people. In fact, staying in community, even when it's flawed and can let you down, still brings many rewards. And my guess is that those of you who've been here upwards of 10 to 20 years can attest to that. I'm sure you've seen hard times, experienced arguments, have fallen out with someone, or have been disillusioned, and yet you're still here. Why? Why are you still here, even when you may have had your heart broken, or you've been misunderstood, or disparaged, or you've disagreed with how things were going? There must be something inside you that is fed by the greater mission, by the greater whole, something in you that is nourished by knowing that belonging to a community, a conscious community committed to transforming the world through justice and compassion, transforms you as well. These rewards of community and our collective mission are powerful. Theologian Friedrich Buechner calls it becoming fully human. Having our hearts alternately crushed and then elated, learning from living with the complexities of other humans can transform our hearts and minds. Buechner says, you can survive on your own. You can grow strong on your own. You can even prevail on your own, but you cannot become human on your own. So perhaps becoming fully human, stretching ourselves to be more than we can be alone, is what we're doing in this crucible of community. A crucible is a ceramic or metal container in which substances may be melted, crushed, or subjected to very high temperatures. And in that process, the individual elements transform into something new. And this beautiful community is a crucible for our growth and transformation. A crucible for learning to love. Exposing ourselves to difference and difficulties while committing to remain in relationship gives us the opportunity to become better versions of ourselves. We have the chance to try again, to listen more deeply, to communicate more effectively and reach across the divide. We have the opportunity to learn how to expand our hearts and make room for the things that we have previously kept out. And we have the chance to bring our vulnerable, scared selves that may feel unlovable into a group where we might just discover that we are lovable after all. Writer Elizabeth Gilbert says, to be fully seen by somebody and be loved anyhow. This is a human offering that can border on the miraculous. And this miraculous gift of love, my friends, is what I've seen you offer each other again and again. As the great activist Dorothy Day said, we have all known the long loneliness. And we have learned that the only solution is love, and that love comes with community. And in addition to love, we get to practice peace, compassion, forgiveness, and non-violence right here. For if we can't do it here, my friends, when so many of us are of like mind, how can we possibly hope for peace and understanding in our world? We have to live these values here before we can go out and change the world. Renowned Unitarian theologian James Luther Adams said, "Church is where we practice becoming more human." So I invite us all to practice becoming more human. To see this beautiful fellowship not only as a place to socialize and be with friends, which is wonderful, of course, but also as a place to grow into the very best versions of ourselves. To be transformed by love in this crucible. The covenant you witnessed earlier between Reverend Betty and myself presents one of those opportunities for us to become more wholehearted, better versions of ourselves. It might have been easier to just dive into welcoming Reverend Betty back without clarity or intention. But other UU communities have taught us that there is a wiser way to approach such a relationship between a minister and a former minister. Establishing a covenant gives us an opportunity to be in an intentional, aware, and thoughtful relationship with one another. Intentional, aware, and thoughtful, so that we might swim to the other side together in a way that can be transformational and life-enhancing for us and for the community. The covenant helps us all be clearer and wiser about how best to create and maintain a healthy congregation. And I want to say again that this is a very healthy, thriving congregation. And it was one of the things that so attracted me to you when you called me. This covenant is similar to marriage vows. Not that we're getting married or anything, but but we're making certain promises to one another in front of the assembled community who will share this covenant. And likewise, you as a community have developed your covenant of good relations. And this gives you a container within which to keep practicing being kinder, more compassionate, and loving with one another. Without a covenant, a vow to aspire and return to, there would be no guidelines for how best to be in relationship with one another. And without a covenant, it would be too easy to return to caring just about our own well-being. A covenant is a sacred gift, a ritual unique to committed relationships. Our community gives us the opportunity to walk consciously through life together, to witness and honor each other through major life transitions, such as graduation, marriage, childbirth, illness, retirement, and loss. The rituals we share during these life events bring us closer. They help us feel supported and hold us tenderly in a community of care. So we come now to a time to express that collective love to one another. Our annual Ingathering ritual is a way of celebrating our interconnected web, which our seventh principle asks us to honor. This ritual gives us a chance to nourish each other, to honor one another, and help each other see life with new eyes. And at a time when we have mixed feelings about the capacities of water, today we're going to lift up the cleansing and renewing qualities of water. May it be so. So as we celebrate our community and our coming together now for the new church year, as we rejoice in this ingathering and simultaneously lament the events in our nation and world right now, I invite you to come forward for a ritual cleansing. Hand-washing rituals are part of many spiritual traditions, of Judaism, Shintoism, paganism, and others. Some of us come here today feeling tired, overwhelmed, or sick. Others may be worried, stressed, or unhappy. Whatever weighs on your heart, we will use this moment to cleanse ourselves from anything we want to leave behind as we begin this new chapter together. We can take this opportunity to let go of pain, of suffering, of sorrows and struggles, of negativity and expectations that do not serve the greater good. Allow this hand washing to cleanse you of whatever does not contribute to your joy and the greater good. Allow the water to renew and refresh your spirit so that together we may invite a radiant new day for this community and all of our lives. Now there are 3 stations, one here, one there, and one there. And in a moment I'm going to ask you to form 3 lines. The choir had an opportunity to do this during the first service, so they will be sitting there and holding witness as we come forward. And I ask us to divide up between the 3 lines. As you come up, place your hands above the bowl and allow the person before you to pour a little water over your hands. You can touch the water to your face or just let it cleanse your hands. The water poured onto your hands is fresh just for you. And then kindly dry your hands and turn to the person behind you and do the same for them. And please say the following words to the person whose hands you are washing. May this water renew your spirit.